have gold that has to go through fire before it's purified, roses, before you can really smell them, you have to crush them. So the pain and the pressure of life came not to destroy me, but to make me who I am. And I started to think like that, and I embraced pain, and pain became a friend instead of an enemy.
Hey, welcome to the Levelin Up podcast with Brigham Blackham. So excited to have Mr. Olympia. He's super decorated bodybuilder, pastor, amazing father, and just someone I'm look forward to talking with today. Named Ron Williams. Coach Ron Williams is someone that I have been able to experience for the last 4.5 years, and he always over delivers. So really excited to have him on today and to share a little bit more about the 3 secrets to improving your faith, your family, your finance, and your fitness. So we're going to first start out. Ron, tell us a little bit how people get to know you. What is your background? Because I mean, super decorated, 250 plus awards in bodybuilding, just absolutely phenomenal career there. Tell us about that.
Well, man, just hearing you say that makes me tired, man. 250, that's a lot, but just one day, it just happened to be 250 titles. When I started competing, um, my whole idea, which is really strange, was not that I loved the sport so much, but the reason I started training the way I did is because I wanted to win, and it required training to win.
Mm.
So I kept training, kept winning, kept training, kept winning. And before you know it was 250 titles, 21 world championships. I look back and think, that's going to be hard for anybody to catch up with.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about you being a bodybuilder of the decade. What an amazing accomplishment. I mean, to have that honor. Tell us what that whole idea is so that our listeners that may not be as familiar with it, why that is so impactful and awesome.
Well, natural bodybuilder of the decade means, to me, it means they ran out of awards, man, and they just came up with one and said, "You're the best natural bodybuilder of this decade. You're the bodybuilder of the decade." So they awarded me with that and inducted me into the Hall of Fame, man.
That's so cool. Man, that is such an amazing accomplishment. And one of the things I think is awesome is when I look on your website and I see the amount of lives that you've positively impacted, it's not just, hey, I'm an amazing coach for myself and for your son, but for so many people. It looked like over 100,000 people you've been able to positively impact. That is such an amazing experience. Can you talk to us about why that is maybe even more impressive than what you did for yourself?
Well, actually, when you hear 250 titles, 21 world championships, you think, wow, that guy's pretty awesome. And but most people don't realize what it required to get there, what I had to overcome, and what created the passion. And it wasn't all, roses. I
Mm.
came from a very, very hard background, and either my background was going to kill me or make me the man that I became.
Mm.
And because of my relationship with God in my life later on in the years, that's what made me take the direction that I took.
Mm.
And I realized, we talked about 3 things or 3 secrets. I would call them principles.
Yeah.
And one of the principles is resilience, being able to bounce back from whatever the world has to throw at you. The second one would be being able to troubleshoot, going back to find out what made you the way you are. And if you don't like the way you are, what is it going to require to change that? And the third one would have to be God, man.
Mm.
Those three coupled to, I mean, coupled or tripled together is really what made me who I am today.
That is such a like a simple thing to say, but to implement, it takes a lifetime of dedication. And resilience isn't something that you just wake up and one day say, I'm going to be resilient today. You're going to say, I'm going to do it every day. So let's dive a little deeper. When you talk about resilience, because I mean, you've had a lot of challenges in your life and you've been able to overcome them time and time again. Let's go deeper. What does resilience mean to you, and why is that the first principle that you want to talk about?
Well, resilience, like I said, being able to bounce back. And as a kid, sometimes it's hard to know that you even have such a thing called resilience. But I talked about at one time how there was over 5 million cells that were that were separated from the male. 5 million separated from the male as as a seed to actually join with the egg to create me. So out of all of those 5 million cells, only one was able to fertilize that egg. And that's what made me who I am. And the terrain that it had to go through, how the whole cycle, that was resilience in itself. So when it comes to resilience, it's not that I have to gain resilience. I have to remember and go back to where I came from. I was resilient from the beginning, but when we came into this world, um, our circumstances, the things around us, helped us to forget that we could be resilient. And I was forced to remember that. I was forced to remember that I could do hard things. I can do hard things, man. Um, and when I began to understand and acknowledge that I was resilient, then I was able to move forward. Now, how did I acknowledge the resilience? How did I know that I could be resilient? Well, one is we have a mindset. The first mindset we have is given to us. Our environments, people, our parents, you know, uh, they give us our thought process. And so I was given a thought process of losing, never being able to overcome, never being able to accomplish. You're dumb, you're stupid, you're never going to be anything. Wasn't It appeared that I wasn't very smart in school because I got really, really, really bad grades. The only A I got in school was for lunch. I could eat really well. Uh, but with that being said, um, I didn't get very good grades in school. I was told I was dumb and I was stupid. I began to buy into the lie. I believed it. When I met God, He told me some things about me that I'd never heard before. And one day I started to believe it. And I found out that I could win. Once I started winning, I refused to lose. Even when they said, "You're second place," I said, "No, give me one more chance. I'll show you I'm number one." And I'd come back and I'd do it all over again and I'd show them that I am number one. I am, and the other thing is pain became a friend. We shy away from pain when pain can be our best friend. Um, Life is full of pressure. We have diamonds that have to go through pressure before you really see their brilliance. Gold that has to go through fire before it's purified. Roses, before you can really smell them, you have to crush them. So the pain and the pressure of life came not to destroy me, but to make me who I am. And I started to think like that, and I embraced pain, and pain became a friend instead of an enemy. Whenever I go to the gym, just real quick on this, and I'm gonna listen to you for a bit. But whenever I go to the gym, I intentionally add pressure because I know that pressure is going to make me stronger. I know that pressure is going to help me reach my goal. If I put 400 pounds on the bench and I can barely get it, uh, I'm going to put 405 pounds on next week. I'm going to put 410 pounds on the week after that. I'm intentionally adding more pressure because I look at it as if I'm progressing. But oftentimes, when pressure comes in life, in your marriage, in your job, uh, we feel like this pressure is taking us under and we don't want the pressure. We've been taught that. We've been taught that. But when pressure comes, it gives me an opportunity to show who I really am.
I love
You
that.
know, bring it on.
Yeah, the pressure is the thing that really creates who you are. And I thought that that was a great analogy. Thank you. But it's so practical in life too. So when you think of this second one, you said troubleshoot. Sometimes we get stuck in the muck of our story, stuck in the challenges, the difficulties that if we let that story stay the same and we don't make that reframe, we're not going to progress. So how did you go from where you were, some of the challenges you went through, even in, when you were a young kid, like, man, you're not getting the grades, so you're not smart. You're like, wait a second, that's not true. Tell us how you were able to troubleshoot and how troubleshooting has helped you in your family and your finances and your faith. Let's talk about troubleshooting in a little more depth.
Well, troubleshooting, that comes in where, you know, I always say, if you don't like your life the way it is, then change it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like your life the way it is, change the way you think about it. Because as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Mm.
Then, in order to change the way I think, I've got to troubleshoot to find out why I think the way I think.
Yeah.
Because the way I think is what made me who I am. So, like as a child, I was beaten. As a child, I was molested. As a child, some difficult things really happened. I was made to feel like I was unwanted, unloved, and I was a waste of space. And it was a tragedy that I was alive because I'm breathing air that somebody else could be breathing. I remember the only man in my life at that particular time. I called him Uncle Joe, but he wasn't my uncle. I remember him dying. And when he died, he said to his wife, raise this boy because nobody wants him and nobody loves him. So when I heard those words, it rang so deep into the core of who I am. That had a lot to do with the reason I became the way I was. To me, Ron Williams, I was unlovable. So I acted unlovable. To me, I was a waste of space. I was hideous to society. So that's what I became. So I had to look at all the things that happened to me. I look at the outcome. Why am I acting like this? I could trace it back and I could troubleshoot back to where that started. So I had to troubleshoot back to where it started, heal that area. Sometimes it required forgiveness, reassociation. It required some work done on that area. Once I got that area changed, then I noticed that it began to change my world and change my life. If I don't change the way I think about a thing, it'll remain the same. And I can know something intellectually, but in my belief system, completely different.
Mm.
If my belief system doesn't change, regardless of what I know in my head, it doesn't matter. I can believe something and not believe something. I'll
That's
give you an example.
I
I'll
love
give
it.
you an
Yeah, let's hear an
example.
example.
Like I could be taught my whole life, money is the root of all evil. Money is the root of all evil. And so you have a tremendous amount of money. I want to be like you when I grow up. Because you have a tremendous amount of money, I'm saying there's got to be something evil about that guy because he's got way too much money. I like him. He's a nice guy. He's handsome. I just like him, but something's wrong with him because he's got a lot of money. Well, money runs from me because I have an internal self sabotage when it comes to money because I personally believe it's evil. But I've been taught that from a youth. And then when I get older, I'm thinking, I got to pay my bills. I got to take care of my kids. So intellectually, I know I need money. So I go out and I work for money, but I feel a little bit, I feel bad about it. I feel wrong about because money to me is evil, even though I know I need it. So I'm trying to get money, but every time I get ready to get a lot of money, it seems to run from me because I've got an internal self sabotage against money. So, with that being said, I have to go back and say, why is money running from me? I'm just as smart as this guy, and I'm better skilled than this guy, but yet he's making all this money. Well, he doesn't have that sabotage inside of him. So I go all the way back, I trace it back and say, this is why I feel money is evil. I was taught it, I was trained it, they taught me in church. And then I look at the scripture and it says, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Mm.
So money is not evil, but when I put money above God, when I put money above my family, when I put money above everything, I'll do anything to get money. So money's not evil. It's when I love it and it's not in its proper place in my life. So I change the way I look at money, and then money changes the way it appears in my life. Wow. Boom.
Yeah, that's so good. And you think about how simple those it's the love of money. Just those two words, how that changes your relationship, changes your interaction with it. And you can start to attract more of that into your life because now it's a friend. It's like, hey, it's something that I can use as a resource, but I'm not putting it above God. I'm not putting it above my family. And I think that's key. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I really think this is applicable in not just one or two elements of life, but in every element of life. If we have a story that is not working for us,
That's
we
right.
need to create those reassociations. We need to troubleshoot. So in your fitness, because I know this is where you are the king when it comes to understanding this. In your fitness, when you're trying to troubleshoot something, what are the strategies that you go about to identify the core or the root issue? Just like you said that love of money is the core or the root of all evil. When you're trying to find the core problem, the core issue, maybe it's the thought process or the story you're telling yourself. What do you do to identify those things?
When it comes to fitness,
When it comes to fitness, yeah.
okay, when it comes to fitness, the first thing you want to do is find out what is the end result. What do you want to accomplish?
Mhm.
And then you look at people that have already accomplished what you desire to accomplish, and you look at what their desires were, and you trace back and you find out what is different about them than what's different than yourself.
Mhm.
And as you look at that, you want to also look a little deeper to find out why are they doing what they're doing. Is it the same reason you're doing what you're doing? So for example, you have one guy who says, like me for example, when I first started off in competing in bodybuilding, I was this young guy I was an adult, but I was really a little boy in a man's body. Because wherever you were injured, wherever you were hurt, wherever you were devastated, there's a certain amount of growth that never happens until that's healed.
Mm.
And so this little boy was in this man's body, um, trying to win, not only trying to win, but build this armor around himself so that he couldn't be hurt again. So if you wanted to do what I did, you find out why I did it and how I did it. You would have to go all the way back and say that kid was so hurt, was so devastated that he built this armor around himself. Competing wasn't just to win, but it was life to him. He didn't have a family. He didn't have, people to back him up. And he found out early in life that the world loves a winner. They don't like second place, but if you win, they show you love. So winning was life or death to him. So he had to win. That was my core. And so I built this physique. And when people would come and they would ask me, "What do you do to look like that?" I would tell them, "You don't want to know. You don't want to know."
You don't want to know.
And there is no secret. There is no secret. This is what I did. Um, and when I would tell them, they really didn't want to know because they weren't willing to do what I was willing to do, because they had family, they had love, they had people in their lives. This was all I had. And if I lost, I wasn't second best. I was a second rate individual to me. So winning was not an option for me. It was not an option. I had to go the extra mile. But along the way, I learned some things. I would figure out the last seven Mr. Universes, the last seven Mr. Olympias, the last seven Mr. World. I would go as deep into their life as I possibly could. The way they were with their family, the way they were with their kids, the way they ate, the way they trained. And I began to take it to a whole nother level. And so when I got these doubts that came into my mind that would say, "Why do you think you can win Mr. Universe?" Well, I've got all of this evidence. I've got great genetics. I train harder than they do. I eat better than they do. If you cheat once, you get an A. If you cheat twice, you get a B plus. I'm going to get an A plus. I'm never going to cheat. So when I get on stage, this is why I'm Mr. Universe. I convinced myself in my mind that I was Mr. Universe, and I behaved. as Mr. Universe.
Mm.
I wasn't working trying to be Mr. Universe. I was working out of being Mr. Universe. I am Mr. Universe. That's who I am. I'm not working to be that, because if I'm trying to be Mr. Universe, that means I'm not. But if I am Mr. Universe, I just got to maintain who I am. I'm working, doing what I'm doing because I am, not because I want to be. And so that's the way I trained, that's the way I saw life, and that's the way I conducted myself as Mr. Universe. They would, I would find out the Mr. Universes, they would do 50 lunges per set. Every set they would do 50. I found one guy that was doing 100. You know how many lunges you can do around the track, a whole track? You can do 400. You know how I know?
You did them.
That's right. Mr. Universe doesn't do 100, he does 400. So I began to, so the idea is to troubleshoot to find out what you want, why you want it. But what I learned along the way is a lot of the athletes, they have these certain bodies. They weren't out to develop the bodies that they have. They were out to win at their sport. And so what I learned and what I studied for years and years and years is how to look like that athlete that you want to look like without doing what it required for him to get that way. He wasn't using energy systems. He wasn't using body sculpting systems. He was developing skills and doing certain things. For example, a boxer, it only takes 8 pounds of pressure to knock a person out. I don't want to learn how to knock people out. I just want abs the way he has. I want shoulders like him. So I focus on the muscle groups and I focus on what I need as far as the energy systems and the body sculpting systems. And I take the hard part out. And that's how I train other people. I showed them, I found out where they are now, how they got there, and what their goals are. I don't know if you knew this, but there are 75 reasons why people carry excess body fat.
75?
75, yes. And many of us carry 30 of those reasons. Some of us carry 4 or 5. If you find out the root cause of the excess body fat and you reverse it, the body fat goes away. That's all. It just goes away. And I look at body fat similar to hoarders, or no, not hoarders, squatters.
Okay.
They're in your house and they don't want to leave, and you can't just say get out. You have to apply a law. When you apply the law and that law is invoked, the squatters have to leave. Many of us, we leave the squatters there. We say, I tried to diet, I tried to exercise, didn't work, so you can have the house. And we carry this extra body fat our whole life. No, let me be your lawyer. I'll help you get that squatter out.
I love that analogy. Well, I think it's so good because there's certain laws, and if they follow the laws, then that goes away. You said 75 different reasons. Man, that
75.
I mean, I think of like 8 or 10. So I have a long way to go to figure out those 75. But
Well, you've heard that cortisol creates excess body fat on your lower abdomen and then spreads its way out your body. Well, there are certain things that you go through in life. If you were abused or something like that as a child, that releases cortisol. And if that situation goes undealt with, it releases cortisol day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, until it's dealt with. It has a right to be there. If you don't deal with that, not only will it affect your body, but it affects your relationships with other people. So what I do is I help people trace it all the way back, sometimes back to when they're 3 years old, man. Sometimes, we'll have a situation with our spouse and we'll say, the reason why that happened is with my spouse. No, the reason why that happened with your spouse is when you were 10, this happened back here. That's why it happened with your spouse. And that's why it keeps reproducing itself in different ways. It shows up in your life in different ways. Let's go all the way back to the root, like a dandelion. You can cut that dandelion down, but 3 days later, buddy, it's coming right back up. But you put a little weed and feed and you kill the root, the flower dies. Yeah.
That's huge. So when you're coaching people, the the root cause is what you're going for, not here's the surface level, the fat or whatever. You're like, how do I actually go to the root, go to the core issues? So when you're troubleshooting, I mean, 75 reasons like that, that's going to be a lot of different data points you have to go through. How do you typically go and help someone find out what those root causes are? Is that just through conversation? Do you have a course? Do you have a book? What is it that you do to help them recognize those root causes?
Well, I believe that, the Bible says that God created us in his image and in his likeness.
Mhm.
Well, we are his masterpiece. We're the best thing that he's ever created. We're in his image and in his likeness, so we look like him. And so, with that being said, we have things that come into our lives that help us not look like him, and those things we have to get rid of. So, what we do, the question was, how do we troubleshoot?
Yeah.
Well, the key is you find out what the person's desire is. And troubleshooting starts with just looking at the individual, looking at their eyes, looking at their posture, the way they walk. All of those things are, your body is always telling a story. We just have to interpret it correctly. Give you an example. You got this tall girl that she's in school. She's really, really shy, so she doesn't want to be looked at. So she
Hunkers
pushes
down.
her head down, pulls her shoulders forward. Is that because of her insecurity or fear? Where does that come from? Or it could be because of she works a lot with her shoulders forward and she's on the computer all the time.
Yeah.
Or it could be because men never look at her eyes, but they're always looking at her breast. So she'll cover herself this way. So as I'm sitting down, I'm talking to her, I'm looking at her posture, and I'm looking at why she's doing what she's doing, her mannerisms. Is she confident? Is she this? And she's starting to tell me a story as she walks in my office. So immediately I start to analyze, what am I dealing with here? And then as she talks, she will tell me things like you'll hear people say things like I don't want to be rich. I just want to have enough money to get. She's telling me a story. I'm like, oh, you don't want to be rich. Um, um, you know, uh, Regardless of what it is, there's something that's motivating the words that's coming out of your mouth, the way you stand, the way you walk. All of that is telling a story. We just have to put it in context and then help that person trace all the way back to where it started.
Mm.
The first two people that you're involved with is your mother and father. And those are the two people that could be the most benefit to you, or they can be the biggest hurt unintentionally because they love you.
Mm.
And they do things that they don't even know that they're doing. You want me to give you an example?
I do want to hear an example. You know it.
Okay, here we go. Now, this little girl, she hates the dentist. And her mother's got to take her to the dentist on Friday. She knows every time I go in there, he sticks me, he hurts me, he makes me cry. So the mother says, that cavity, we got to go get that taken care of. She's 5 years old. And the little girl starts to cry. I don't want to go to the dentist, mommy. You've got to go to the dentist, honey. So she says, well, listen, after the dentist, I'm going to buy you ice cream. Okay, okay. So she dries up the tears. So Friday comes, they go to the dentist. As usual, the doctor sticks her, makes her cry. But right after the dentist, the mom's on the way home. She says, Mom, you said you was gonna get me ice cream. So mom takes her to get her ice cream. So this little girl finds herself years later, 13 years later, break up with her boyfriend. She's sitting on the couch with a big container of Haagen-Dazs ice cream. She's eating it.
Mm.
Why isn't she eating the apple? Why isn't she eating spaghetti? Why isn't she was taught as a little child, when you go through pain, Haagen-Dazs is the answer.
Mm.
She was taught as a little girl. So you say, why are you eating ice cream? I don't know. I just like ice cream. She doesn't realize that her mother taught her that. And so we have to trace it all the way back and reassociate. Did your mother want you to be overweight and obese? No. What was your mother really after? She was trying to comfort me. Do you think that your mother would like you being overweight and obese today because she gave you ice cream back then? No. Let's accomplish what your mother wanted. Let's reassociate what your mother's intention was. But you've got the root of it now. You can move forward.
Mm. And that's a great example. You think about how many of us have had a similar experience. We create an association, and this is just the pattern that we fall into, but we don't trace it back and figure out, is this a pattern that's actually serving me? Is it something
That's
that's
right.
going to help me get closer to my goals, or is it something that's going to take me away from my goals?
And what
So,
it does, it actually releases hormones, the happy hormones in your body when you satisfy it. You get
mm,
that football player, he's 12 years old, he gets 3 touchdowns in one game. Soon as the game is over, dad said, "That's my boy. We're going out, we're gonna celebrate." Well, that little boy turns 28 years old and gets a promotion. He goes home and says, "Hey, honey, put on your best dress." Why? You got the promotion? Yes, we're gonna celebrate. Why does he celebrate around food? Because he learned that it made his father proud when he got the touchdown. And when it's something that you're proud of or that you've been elevated, let's celebrate. It releases happy hormones in your brain, and you don't even realize why. And that
yeah.
could be positive or negative. Negative behavior acts the very same way. The subconscious mind doesn't determine whether it's good, bad, or ugly. It just is.
Mm, so true. So true. So, Ron, in the last few moments we have together, what is the advice that you would give yourself 20 years ago when you're getting into this industry? You're understanding, hey, I need to run my own business, I need to grow my business, need to do something to make a difference and a positive impact. What advice would you give yourself as a young entrepreneur that you wish you would have known back
Entrepreneur.
then?
As an entrepreneur, because I went from street kid to athlete to entrepreneur. So as an entrepreneur, I had overcome a lot of the things that the street kid manifested, and I overcame a lot of things that even the bodybuilder who thought if he took second was second rate before I became an entrepreneur. So you want to start with entrepreneur?
Let's start with the we can go to the beginning first and then you can get to the entrepreneur, I guess. That's fine.
Okay. As a street kid or a kid that was abused, I would say the advice that I would give that person was it's not always what it appears. It's not
Mm,
always what it appears. When I look back now at my youth, I think about my mother. My mother grew up in a horrible, horrible situation. My father was 10 years older than her. I think he was 28 and she was about 14 or 15.
mm,
And she already had a child, and I was the second child. So we look at our parents as heroes. She didn't know how to be a mother, she was a child raising children. And so I would take the parents off the pedestal. When we come home as children, there are no instruction manuals to teach you how to raise a child. And a child raising a child shouldn't be to begin with. So that's the first thing.
mm.
Things happen in your life that you can use it for the better or you could use it for the worse. So as a child, everything that happened to me made me who I am today. I'm very compassionate, very passionate. I love people. I have empathy for people. I had so many wounds as a child. And if you were to take all my skin off, you'd see a bunch of wounds or you'd see a bunch of scars. Scars are good, wounds are bad. Wounds can fester. Wounds can become aggravated, they can grow. But a scar is what's left over after the wound has been healed. It proves that there was an injury, but what comes with that injury is wisdom, compassion, passion, and the ability to help somebody else. So the scars are good. So use those scars to benefit humanity. Now, as the competitor, I learned how to win, and I never want to lose that. But I never want to lose that. but it took something for me to dig deep into learning how to be consistent and win. What I like to do is transfer what I have, all of my pain, to my clients so they don't have to go through it. Because
Mm.
that pain creates a passion and a desire to overcome. Well, I want to help them skip the experience and just experience the desire and the wherewithal to be their best. Now, as the entrepreneur, most of the time we fail not because we're not smart enough.
Mm.
Most of the time we fail not because we don't have the skill or the ability to win. We fail because we quit and we don't believe in ourselves.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that's the reason why we fail. It's not because we can't do it, we don't have what it requires, but we're afraid of what if we were to succeed, or if I try, I'm not going to succeed, so I'm not going to give it my all. A lot of those things are the reason why we fail. But if we make our mind up and apply ourselves, we're greater than what we really believe that we are. And so my job is really easy, is to help you to see what's inside of you, what you have. You do have what it requires. If I can make it, anybody else can too. Man, one of the biggest things that have ever happened to me in my life is going to take place in July. And that is,
Really?
I'll be speaking on an international world stage, one of the biggest world stages. I don't know a stage bigger than this in the world.
Wow.
And they're inviting me to speak where every country in the world is represented in the Olympics.
That
I'll
is
be
so
speaking in
cool.
the Summer Olympics.
Summer Olympics. My goodness,
Yes,
that is such an honor.
this
Uh,
little street kid, Summer
That's so
Olympics, I
cool.
get to speak there and promote my business. And what they want me to talk about is going from a street kid to a world-class bodybuilder to an entrepreneur.
Mm.
I get to, can you believe that?
So cool.
Yeah,
It's so neat. You think about who you've become in this process. And one of the key takeaways for me from our conversation today was you want to utilize that pain and give that to your clients without them having to experience it. You're sharing wisdom. You're like, you know what? You don't have to go through the same experience that I did, but you do have to experience a lot of these principles. And you can experience the principle without having to actually get hurt. And that's where sharing
absolutely,
those scars are so valuable. Thank you for that. It's wisdom. I love that.
absolutely.
Now,
Last thing would be
yeah,
a
go ahead.
real key is learn how to. We've been taught, many of us have been taught how to dislike ourselves and how we're less than and not to love ourselves. A real big key is learning to love Ron Williams. I
Mm,
love this guy. He's pretty cool.
he is pretty cool. I love Ron. I love Brigham. You think about it. If we can learn to love ourselves, then we can learn to love others. If we can't love ourselves, we can't love others the same way. And it's so crucial to find joy. One of my biggest things, I tell this on almost every podcast, is I strive to positively impact, uplift, and really give joy to people so that as they're developing in their leadership journey, that they can reach their God-given potential as I reach mine. And I'm so excited for you at the Summer Olympics. That is so awesome, man. That's so cool.
Thanks,
So
man.
we're going to
But
be
you're a
looking
pretty
forward.
spiritual guy. You're a pretty spiritual guy, right?
Yes, sir.
Well, scripture says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And that's contingent. And it's a
Mm,
big if, but it's contingent on, do you love yourself?
yeah.
And so in order for you to love somebody else fully, you have to first love yourself.
Mm,
So when you really love Brigham, you have more to give. You have more
yes.
love to share with other people.
I love that. That's so true. That's the biggest commandment. Honestly, we love ourselves and love God and you love your neighbor. So important. Thank you so much, Ron. I feel like sharing these heartbeats today on here is such a pleasure. I love being around you. You have such a great energy. How do people find you online and how do they keep in contact with you?
Ron Williams. If you Google Ron Williams, natural bodybuilder, boom, you'll find everything there is about me. But Ron Williams, Champion Life, Ron Williams, Wisdoms That Transform. Those are scriptures. I take less than 3 minutes and explain a profound piece of information about scripture, just one verse. So yeah, go online, Facebook, find me on Facebook. We're just starting TikTok. I just started. I'm embarrassed. We got maybe 23, 25 people on TikTok. So follow my TikTok, people.
Well,
You got to
follow
help me
his
build this
TikTok.
thing.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Ron. It always a pleasure to be in your presence. Thanks for making great waves. And I know we have lots of people on here commenting just how awesome you are and how much we appreciate you sharing so much awesome insight. And
Well,
I
thanks,
I
man.
man, it was awesome. Thank you,
Well,
guys. Oh, go ahead.
don't be forever. I want you to have me back now.
No, absolutely. Season 2, man. Next year we're gonna get you again. That'll be awesome.
Boom.
So good. Boom. All right. Well, I
Okay.
appreciate you. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless.
You
Yeah.
too. God bless you, my friend. Bye-bye.
Guys, like and subscribe this if this is helpful for you. Would love to keep adding value to your life and leveling up you in every single way that we can in your fitness, in your business, in all the different elements of life. So God bless.